Hi everyone, welcome to the stock market recap for the new month of February. So today is February 1st. Let's go through the sector review before we get started. This video is for information purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before investing. Okay, so some of the weakest themes of the day, sectors, starting with KRE, has sort of an island reversal on the daily and looks a pretty powerful reversal for two high volume days from there, and down from this point on about 8% so far. Volume for today actually more than what we saw yesterday. So something to keep in check here, this island reversal for KRE, for the regional banks. Okay, then we take a look at dollar. Dollar is the second thing that is down quite a lot, 0.54% today. USD CAD, what it's doing is back at that red trend line where we bounced off of yesterday. XLF had a bit of a down move, but so far getting some momentum back up. What I would like to see it close above that 5-day here. That would be a good sign for continued strength in XLF. 3886 is the number. Okay, IYT, you can see what is happening is we put in almost like a double top, but there's two ways that this could work out. You could see this island on the bottom, and this could act as a head and shoulders, which would get activated on a break of 265. So we can see IYT kind of running up from here, breaking 265, although we do have resistance just above it. That would confirm this inverted head and shoulders, or this could act as a double top and break down. So kind of an interesting development on IYT coming through. XLE. So XLE had a bit of a sell-off, but picked back up here with some demand coming in. It's also the first of the month, so there could be some inflows into different sectors that are funds are under positioned in. So tomorrow we could get a better idea of continuation after the first is over, and more likely, actually, I would say next week on the 5th would be, because tomorrow's OPEX, so again, it could be a volatile day. SMH coming through with again not being able to take the 5-day back, and we have kind of an island reversal with a head and shoulders and head pattern with it breaking below. This would get negated if we take back that 5-day. Until then, SMH is on the weaker side. Although like some of the stronger stocks in the sector are still moving up, but it is still on below the 5-day here. IYZ Telecommunications lost that 5-day yesterday, and today is not able to take that back yet. We can put an alert right above that to see if at some point it is able to take that 5-day. So with the loss of that 5-day yesterday, it's going to switch this to yellow instead of green. IWC microcaps, kind of in a sideways pattern here, but looks like it's putting in a lower high, which is not great. We've got to take this high and start moving up for a bullish continuation. It is marked in red currently. IJT, small cap growth. Let's look at the weekly, see if we can see anything. So on the weekly, you can see that we are still above that 5-week. We tried to break below that this week, but got bought up. So still in the green from the weekly front for IGT, but daily looks sort of sideways for now. So it could be flagging here for a move higher, not sure yet, but since we're retaining that 5-week, stays in the green territory, and so as with MDY as well, tried to break below that 500, but closing above. So far closing this week above. We still have one more day to go to finish the week for MDY. So this can also be switched over to green. Let's do a quick check on the daily as well. So for the daily, what I'm seeing here is like sort of like an inverse head and shoulders pattern, which with a false breakdown here and pick up. So looking healthy on MDY mid caps here so far. What would negate it is if we break today's low and say, close even down at the 50-day here, that would just not be as constructive. We need some more time before it can run higher, or break below the 50-day would definitely be a bearish look for this. So still holding in where it needs to, putting in this kind of false breakdown today. So we should see if it picks up from here and moves up. That would be good for the mid caps. QQQ, interesting. So a bigger island, we talked about this being an island on the daily, and then this got taken up, negated on from this candle. But what actually then happened is this whole thing became an island, right? And so we have this side and this side with a gap up and a gap down. We could further, I presume we would see further selling in QQQ down to some of these gaps here to close some of these gaps down below. S&P holding below that 5-day, so still a bearish look. We can put a alert just above it to see what that does. If it is able to take and close that 5-day, then that would be a bullish sign for SPX, but so far after yesterday's move, still not being able to take that 5-day. Marked in yellow, not as, I would say, extended as QQQ is, but and the island reversal is not there in SPX, but it is still a bearish look with it being below the 5-day. XLC commanded by Google being one of the heavyweights here. Below the 5-day and fairly below the 5-day, and so definitely not where the strength is currently. I'm gonna switch this now to a red S&P here. So we have the AVWAP from the previous low that is holding the price here, but it is below that 5-day here. Switching this to yellow as we did with the SPX. XLV, interesting. This stays in green. It was able to take this week with that sell-off in the market. So far closing the week with almost putting in a new high. So XLV is a strong sector from the start of the year and still continuing to show strength. XME, metals and mining, that is also holding in there. Let's just go to the weekly to see what's going on. So 5-week pointing down needs to start curving up, but with this curve up, this could be a possible point where it switches to the bullish side. So I'm going to switch this over to a yellow with it retaking that 5 weeks so far. We're going to reconsider at the end of the week and see how that closes. XLY not being able to contest with that 5-week, tried this week but was not able to. And 5-day and 20-day, a lot of overhead resistance you can see coming through. I think this is the 50-day as well. Yeah, the 50-day, 20-day, 5-day, just too much resistance here. Needs to push through with a huge amount of buying power. Might need to come down to this buying zone and then collect some buyers to push the price through it. But XLY is still looking a bit on the weaker side. XLK also putting in that island reversal here. So there's this island, but there's also this bigger island. So we can mark both. Actually, we already had this one, and you can mark this bigger one as well. So we got 2 islands. Definitely could push it lower into some of these gaps. Looks very similar to the QQQ chart. Also marked in red, with the island reversals coming through on the daily. Real estate ETF picking up a bit today, hitting some overhead resistance in this kind of downward wedging pattern, which as long as it breaks to the upside, that would be a bullish continuation of this trend, with real estate possibly being, closely watching Powell's speech yesterday and getting that sell-off after hearing that there won't be any March cuts. But I think the March cut probability is still around 30% or so, as dictated by the Fed fund futures. And so This kind of picking up from where it was and then hitting some overhead resistance. So still in some sideways consolidation. IWM had an interesting kind of development yesterday. It closed this gap. Today we had a test of the 50-day and a pickup from the 50-day. The 50-day held, and so far we are also above that, whatchamacallit, I think 20-day. With the 5-day being over, and if we can close some of these moving averages here, close above some of these moving averages, that would be a sign of strength. So still actually one of the greener sectors, I would say. IWM, but not as strong, something as strong as XLV so far. XLI is still showing strength. I like that sector. It is above that 5 week, and also above the 5-day, and you can see that sell-off was negated today. Looking good. XLI is looking good with some overhead resistance coming up soon though. IHI medical devices, similar to XLV, is also showing signs of strength. So BSX is a stock I like in this. I'm looking for a good entry into it. Yeah, so one of the good sectors of the year just so far. Materials, nothing to complain here. Still looking okay, and with 5 week pointing down is the only thing. This can be marked as yellow, but we still have the price above that 5 week. Possibly would need to see how it closes tomorrow. This could be considered like a flag and a break of the flag, so we could see further continuation. Here's what I meant by that. So we can see that flagging pattern and then that break of the flag this week with the 5 week above it. So a close above that 5 week would be key for XLB. Utilities kind of stuck in that sideways, nothing crazy to report here. TLT had an interesting week, and we saw kind of a pickup in that where we thought it was going to break down, but it picked up, which is a good sign for growth in tech sector and in stocks in general. So that upward trend you can see can push the full market up. ITB still showing some recovery after that big sell-off of the DHI earnings, still stuck in this sideways pattern, needs to break one way or the other to form some trend. XLP, ITB can probably be moved to a yellow so far because it is not in a breakdown zone. XRT is retail. Sideways, but it is taking that 5 week and staying above it, so it is looking decent so far. Not one of the best sectors, but not one of the worst also. XBI is interesting. We had a breakdown from this wedge yesterday, and today we picked up. We are contesting with that anchored revap, and we took the bottom of the wedge, contesting with that anchored revap. Need to close above and take this top resistance and then start closing some of these gaps. That would designate or dictate a bullish continuation in XBI. Although it fails there, then it could fall lower. 10, interesting, also affected by TLT, bonds and interest rates. So far okay. I mean, holding in where it needs to, but it is in a long-term downtrend. That's, you got to remember that. So after being in a trend like this, sometimes just needs more consolidation, a lot of volatility in this, but there might be some opportunities here after it cleans up some of this mess that it has been in all of last year. Okay, and that's about it. If we want to look at some single stocks, we could. IBM, let's see what that is doing. That was kind of a place of interest. IBM yesterday went down to about 183. Let's go down to the hourly. We need to see the hourly. You can see that it contested with this gap here and found some buying, and then now above that gap, and there's some transactions of buyers and sellers in this zone that it is contesting with. But so far holding that gap. So if you want to get into IBM, one idea would be to get in with the stop, at the somewhere around 184. If you want to be very safe, then you could have it at 182, which would be the previous low from yesterday, or a top of the gap around that 184, and so with a $2 drop, and can ride this higher. The next resistance would be coming in around that 188. So that'd be 2 points in, 2 points down, 2 points up for the first target per se. So that would be just a 50-50 trade. So not the best odds. So maybe patience is going to pay off in in IBM. Let's see what Microsoft is doing. Interesting. It had decent earnings, but just too extended. And we did have that AVWAP test, and it bounced from there. But today contested with that 5-day moving, sloping downwards, and was not able to take it. So sellers coming through into Microsoft, and we'll have to see how QQQ develops. I think Apple reports after close today. That could also dictate the direction of QQQ. This has been an interesting stock, SAIA, with that downward wedge and break. I feel like this is not relevant anymore, but you can see just a sideways pattern in the zone that we had dictated with the gap, and lots of volatility. What is that intraday? That is about 7% move up and down intraday. Now closing today just above that gap zone. Needs to get out of this and start continuing again for an interesting trade here. And DHI had bad earnings, picking up some of that slack, and possibly contesting that 5-day, or I think that's the 20-day. 20-day, and see how the buyers and sellers react at that level. ARM is interesting. So ARM actually tried breaking down today. There is that 200-day support, or actually 50-day support coming through from below. So it feels like it's just one of the weaker semis. Semiconductors have been on a freaking just roll this first month of the year. This has been one of the stocks that has not participated as much. SITM is another one in the semiconductor space. Today felt like it was going to break down to the 103 and got some buying support here with the earnings coming up soon. We could see and keep it on a watch for maybe at least a move into the top channel here before earnings. And that would be a play. If you don't want to play the earnings, then that would be another way to play it. Visa was interesting with XLF breaking down a bit, but picking back up. We did get a 5-day retest and a pushback up. It needs to start closing some of these wick areas to start showing some continuation of bullish momentum. But what I like is that false breakdown and pick up here in Visa, and obviously supported by those good earning numbers. Okay, Modine, MODINE, just feels like a lot of institutions want to get into this stock. You can see there's that 15% move on earnings with it being down, and literally back to where we started January, and then picking all that up in one day. And now we are consolidating. One thing I noticed that we had you can see a higher low in price, but the RSI was lower. So could be pointing to a bit of a divergence. And the second thing is you can see price higher, but RSI lower on the top. So there is some divergence coming through in MOD, which is just keeping me a little cautious about this. And I just don't like these types of moves. I would like it to consolidate on a sideways pattern and then move. Although if you can see, it has come out of a large weekly base. So there could be more to come in MOD. It's definitely a stock of interest for the year. Okay. I think I'll stop it there for today. And we could see how Apple earnings go tonight. And let's just, for that matter, actually just look at Apple before we sign off for the day. Apple kind of putting in this lower high, and so far maybe coming back down to the 200 here. This is 200 day. to find some support, but not the best look, not the look of strength before earnings. But we'll see how the numbers turn out to see if this can be changed. Let's see on the weekly. You can see we tried to push higher, but putting in that lower high, and we'll have to break above that for a trend continuation in Apple. All right, so that's all for today.